Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Opus XII set review from Mysidia Gaming. I'm joined again with Travis Pfeifer. How you doing, Travis?
Hey everybody, happy Halloween. You probably won't see this on Halloween, but that's when we're recording it. So happy Halloween to everyone out there.
Well, you never know. I've got a lot of free time tonight, so we'll see if I can. It's just the length that it takes to actually export and upload. But maybe technically it will be November, but we'll see. Maybe I can get it up in time. But we're coming back to you with the ice cards list this time. And since you've last seen us in the fire video, we've also both had our Opus 12 pre-release. And mine was not an actual match at the locals. We kind of closed up again, so we got our kits and we did a little bit of informal playing and trading with a couple of friends, but then otherwise it was pretty chill, but I had some good pulls.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, I've got some good pulls too. I think a few people were trying to do a tournament, but people just weren't really feeling it, so I basically just got a pre-release kit and then took it home, but that's okay. I'm still glad to get a kit.
Yeah, and it was 9-pack, so a good sealed environment compared to the old days of 6-pack. So that's something to to look forward to if you're getting some kits with friends. But we're gonna go into the cards now. So Travis, take it away.
So I'm going to purposely mispronounce this, but I'm just going to say it how it reads, which is this is Amidatelion. So Amidatelion, which is probably like Amidatelion or something like that, is a 2 CP ice backup, job Crystal Bearer, category Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicle, so another Esha'ntarl target for you. He has an action ability, 2 ice, 1 colorless, dull, and then you remove the top card of your deck from the game. If that card's cost is 4 or less, you may cast it without paying the cost this turn. I will definitely give this guy a try. So it's interesting that cost-wise, it's the exact same as if you had paid the card normally. As a matter of fact, if it's anything but a 4 cost, like if it's a 1 through 3, you're actually overpaying for it because it is costing you 3 CP and then you dull him, so that's a total of 4. However, the interesting part is you're pulling it from the top of your deck. So, if you're in a late game turn or something and, I don't have anything in hand, this is a dead hand. Well, let's see what my deck gives me. So it's a really high swing factor. Now, again, it removes the card from the game. So what if that next card was Orphan or something? You're not going to get to cast it. And now you just lost it to the void. So very high swing, which again, we'll probably ultimately seen it from true competitive play. But the nice thing is too, because it's just a 2 CP backup, I don't think it's a terrible thing to just put it down and then, even if you never use the ability, it's kind of just there as an emergency. Ice does have a lot of great 2 CP backups, but it is definitely going to be worth trying out because, there's going to be some turns you're going to hit something perfect, here comes Genesis off the top, boom, don't freeze that guy, I'm going in. So yeah, he has a lot of potential and a lot of excitement around him, which is what makes him interesting to me.
Definitely, and you can build your deck around this. You could go high forward count and low summon count, low backup count, and just go for some fun shenanigans. When you said Amidatelion, I thought just that sounds like a really poorly translated rom-com anime name or something. Honestly, I like this card because I would typically expect it to be put it into the break zone as well, but it's repeatable, so that's great. So the value here is that because there's 2 types of people in FFTCG. There's the people that say a 4 CP forward costs 4 CP, and then there's the people that say, oh no, it's a 6 CP because the card itself is worth 2. And then when you think about it that way, because you're playing a card from your deck, not from your hand, you are retaining CP over typically playing a card from hand. So it can really be a huge advantage that way. But there's the factors of missing and then the factor of not knowing what you're going to get. But if you have a bunch of good 4 CP-ish, 3 CP ice forwards, which there are a ton of, then I think that this card could be pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, another thing to note, there's no specification about when you can do this. You can do this on your opponent's turn. They might be coming in for combat and surprise Genesis off the top. Don't freeze that. Now I got this extra blocker. So that even makes it more exciting. Is that, no, you can do it anytime.
Yeah, do it right before the attack and then see, like, oh, taking an EX burst off your deck and be like, no.
Wait. Yeah, what did I do?
Okay, next up we've got Ulmia, who is thematically so cool. This is a 2 CP ice forward, job bard, which is rockin', category 11, which is amazing, and very good art here. And she reads, the ice forwards other than Ulmia you control gain 1,000 power. So she's an anthem on a forward. And then she gets damage 3 and 5 effects. So the damage 3 is to choose an ice forward and give it 2,000 power. Damage 5 is to dull and give a nice forward 2,000 power, haste, first strike, and brave. So that's really, really cool. And she's doing what bards do in Final Fantasy XI and in D&D and so many other games. And I just think like that's such a cool thing. I wish that this was like the damage 3 was just like damage 1 or nothing, and then damage 5 was damage 4, and then it would be kind of cool. But I think 2 CP ice forward is really hard to fit into an ice deck. I mean, the effect is really good, like it's undeniably good. I just don't know how you're going to fit this into a deck.
Yeah, it's always nice to see some mono support, and like you said, I love the theme of the bard, and the artwork is beautiful, and that threat of haste, which is something ice normally doesn't have. So that's really cool. In general, I like design like this because I like cards that they in themselves are rather weak, but they make the other cards around them stronger. So, but like you said, I think it'll ultimately just come down to space, and is this really worth it over something else? I don't know, but she's got a lot of scary potential.
Big time. All right, next up we have the first appearance of a final boss.
Yes, if you've played Final Fantasy IX and beaten it, you will recognize this as the true final boss of the game. This is Necron. Necron is a 5 CP forward with 9,000 power. His job is also his name, Necron. Category Theater Rhythm / Final Fantasy IX. So Necron reads, you can play 2 or more dark characters onto the field. When Necron enters the field, choose one character other than Necron you control. Its element becomes dark. This effect does not end at the end of the turn, so they're permanently dark. At the end of each of your turns, if you control 3 or more dark characters, Necron deals your opponent 1 point of damage. Such a cool card. Necron is basically this deity of death that appears at the end of 9, so it's very thematic. It fits with him. And yeah, wow, another way to deal damage to your opponent. For the most part, there's not a whole lot of alternate ways to deal damage to your opponent in this game. Usually it's just through attacking, with a few exceptions. So it's so cool that by this guy just existing with this condition, your opponent is legit on a clock. It's like you've got however many turns you've got left, you have to deal with this guy. Now, that said, I don't really know what to think of this card because I can see a world where he's super strong and annoying and feels unfair. And I can also see a world where he's just too difficult to get that effect off because he himself is not dark. So you have to have 3 other dark characters besides him. And then he still also has to be on the field with that. And then it's only at the end of each of one of your turns. So that is a lot of setup. Mm-hmm. However, if you can make all that happen, you've just, again, got this clock that it doesn't even count your attackers. You can be attacking them and dealing them damage this way, and you've always got the guaranteed damage. So he's super cool. I really like his effect. I don't know how strong he will be without seeing him in action, but really neat and interesting nonetheless.
Much like he does in the video game, this card just came out of nowhere, and right? I love it. Like, honestly, I think that you're not going to rely on him to be your you can play 2 or more dark characters. I think you're going to have to rely on Cosmos because a forward is so, and a 5 CP forward at that is so fickle. So you really don't want to lose him and then all your dark forwards go. So you're going to want to have Chaos. And then if you're able to play Chaos, then it's actually, you play him, he makes something else dark, maybe another backup, and then you're at 2. Then you just need 1 forward. So because he makes a forward dark, and you're probably playing Chaos, and then maybe Camelot, and that works with ice because we have the his brother. I'm totally blanking on the name right now. Eldonarsh, yeah. So, and it's actually really good that Necron is not dark, because he allows you to have a dark forward out, and then he can come out and make something else dark, and then they can both exist. And then you could play a third dark on that turn, like hypothetically. Like if he was dark, you literally couldn't do this combo without Chaos. Yeah. Well, actually, no. Sorry, if he has that text, then he can actually come out on his own. That's my mistake, because Chaos can be played on its own. So I guess that's not so bad. But still, it's good that he's ice. I think that's actually a good thing for the most part. So yeah, I think you're probably gonna have better things to do with your time, but I'm definitely gonna try it. So
for sure.
Yeah. Okay, that's me. Next up, we have Esha'ntarl. I think that's the pronunciation I'm going with, and she is a 4 CP ice forward, and 8,000 power. She has the job member of. I actually have my screen is too small. I can zoom in here. Member of the Armathron Society, and her text reads: "Dull, and then return Esha'ntarl to the owner's hand. Play one forward of cost 7 or less, other than card name Esha'ntarl, from your hand onto the field, and you can only use this ability on your turn." So this is really interesting. I don't know how I feel about it, because it's a really big investment, and then you're paying the CP as well, and getting rid of her to do it. And that is cool that you get refunded 2 CP, but then you've also lost a backup. And I don't know. I guess you can play it again, but then you're losing CP again. And of course, there's a lot of value when you play a 7 cost, but it's whenever there's things in this game that require you to like play things over and over. I've never been able to find too much value, and the exception is like Wind Water with its Mion and its Tidus and its bouncing backups and a YRP. That's like the exception to being able to play a bunch of stuff over and over and over. But everywhere else that it exists in the game hasn't worked out. So I am cautious about this one, but it seems pretty powerful.
I was going to say, we might disagree a bit on this. This card scares me because, first of all, its effect seems very water, not ice, because I would expect this to dull and break itself, but it doesn't. It bounces it back to your hand. So like you said, not only do you have extra CP, you can replay it again to try to go for the combo a second time. You only need it to survive one turn before you can do that. And the idea of just playing any 7 cost forward, it's not restricted by an element. You can pop down a Sephiroth for free. You can pop down a Braska's Final Aeon for free. An Arden. Like, that's really scary to me. And then again, you can do it again because she just came back to your hand. She didn't lose herself to do it. So, yeah, like, this card scares me. I hope it's not as terrifying as I say it is. And like you said, maybe it'll be one of those, like, it's just too much work to try to make this combo. It sounded better than it actually was, but I can also see, again, a world where I'm just like, oh God, here comes all these 7 costs for free.
Yeah, it's just taking away a backup from yourself. Like, that's not
forward,
just,
by the way.
Oh, shoot, it's a forward. Okay. That's my I keep looking at the art, and you know how like sometimes art just looks like it should be a forward? Have you ever or a backup? Okay, so just doing like putting this out like on a forward too, I guess. Then in that case, what I would say is
it makes it easier to interrupt.
A lot easier to interact with. Yeah, so you know what? My entire analysis is wrong because I thought it was a backup. And I like double checked the cards before we did this too, so it's just one of those ones that stuck. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like you play it as a forward, it's vanilla, that's okay, and then you're getting damage in with it until you have a 7 cost in hand. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's cool. It's better than I thought it was. Now I will bump it up a notch. Please take me away from this embarrassment.
All right, let's move on then. Next, we have Eduardo. Eduardo is a backup. He is a 4-cost backup job bard. It's okay, buddy. Category FFL. He reads the text. He has the text. Halloween, people. My mind's on candy or something. Eduardo has the text. When Eduardo enters the field, dull all the characters opponent controls. He then has a special ability, Dire Dirge, which is 1 special and 5 ice CP. Break all the dull backups. So his entry effect is crazy strong. It just dulls every character they control. Forward, backup, monster, you name it. Their entire board is going down. Super Bahamut 0. So that effect is inherently strong. The only thing is because he's a backup, it means most people want to curve out backups as quickly as they can. So are you like saving a spot for when you need a key Eduardo to come down? I guess you could, but you might find yourself where you load up on 5 backups already, and then now you just can't even use him. So just because he is a backup and when you're going to play him, and again, if you play him too early, that's probably not going to do anything. So yeah, he's going to be kind of awkward to use, I feel. And then his special's so weird that, like, why does it break all the dull backup? Like, I could understand just your opponent's backups. Maybe they thought that would be I guess that would be too strong if you just tapped your whole backup line and pitched a card from hand and it broke all their backups. That would probably be way too strong, but like, at the same time, they've put such a downside on it that unless you're willing to throw 3 or 4 cards out from hand, which I guess you could in theory, if you had a lot of cards to throw away, you could just throw 4 cards out of your hand and then just break all their backups and you still have all of yours. But I don't know, that just seems more like a gimmicky thing you're going to do at the end of a game as opposed to something you'd ever do like for serious trying to win.
I think you'd have to have a pretty bad hand to want to do it that way. So it's kind of interesting in that you can, like, the backups that you dull for this special, you're going to break. So if you take advantage of backups that want to be broken, then that could be kind of cool. Or if you wanted to clear a spot. But otherwise, yeah, it's kind of tricky because you're pitching an Eduardo from hand. Which means you're playing multiple of this guy, which is kind of risky to play a bunch of this guy, right. Or you're playing the forward, which again is risky to play a backup and a forward, and then you have to pitch 3 cards or dull 1 backup, break 1 backup. So yeah, it's a really risky special, but it's so achievable. And I like that because that gives it that meme status where you can go for fun games at locals, just destroying people's backup lines, and it's really funny. Right. Yeah, you're going to upset a lot of people, and it'll be super fun. I think that this is just a really hard ETB to use. There's a lot of cards that are reactive, but at least like you can predict that you'll be able to use them in early game. And I'm talking about cards that deal damage or break things. So things like Masked Woman, Seymour, Black Waltz, those have all seen play throughout FFTCG's history because you can play them within the first 10 turns at some point, even though they're expensive backups and you can get value. But it's really hard to know that you're going to need to dull all of their stuff in those first 10 turns with Eduardo, so it's hard to. He's gonna be a dead card in your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about everybody's favorite villain. This is Emet-Selch. I saw there was a post on Facebook, and someone's like I thought was the pre-release promo. Who is this guy? Like just some weird old man, and it's like. Just 1,000 comments like someone never played Final Fantasy 14 because this guy is a fan favorite. Everybody loves him. I love him. He was, when they first introduced him, I was like, hell no, I don't like this guy at all. And then he very quickly became my favorite character, and I'm so excited that he's coming out here, and then we're gonna get him again in the starter deck that's gonna come out, the dual starter deck. So Emet-Selch is a 4 CP forward. And he has 9,000 power, so he's above curve. He is Job Ascian, category 14, which is a great category. When Emet-Selch is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, remove him from the game. If you do so, play him back onto the field at the end of the turn. And it doesn't even say dull, just at the end of the turn. So he's a very sticky forward that's super important. And we know with sticky forwards that... you need to give them a little bit of more power because otherwise they can just die in combat, then they're not that worth it. So that's why he's got the 9k. And then damage 5, same effect. Like when he leaves the field, you get a bonus effect. You can pay 1 ice, and you can either break a doll forward or play a 2-cost forward from your break zone onto the field. So a lot of utility. I like this a lot. I love sticky forwards. They help you get value against your opponent's removal and deter them from using removal. And because he has that power boost, he's super playable. So I think this is a good card.
Interesting. I wonder what if you were able to do his second ability, what 2 or less forward you would get back. Maybe he'd be better in like an Ice X deck, but I'm thinking of just like ice cards that are 2 CP. And the only one that even comes to mind is like Lastwell or Sid Reigns, but it's like he can also just break a doll forward with the same effect. Yeah, he's so interesting. Again, he could be a terror, because this could be a card that like I can't ever get rid of this guy, because if you target him for anything, he's just gone. But at the same time, that could be a real hindrance to you. If they have an easy way to choose him, like a Cactar or an Alphino Ping or just something that very cheaply targets him, he can never block or even attack for you, because they're just going to, yep, bye, just constantly push him out of the way for you. And then he doesn't get that ETB till damage 5, so all those early turns, he's just basically a ghost. So he's one I'm really curious to see what his power is going to truly be, because I can see by the end of the Opus being like, this dude is so annoying. I'm so tired of fighting him. Like, how do you get rid of him? But I can also see like, yeah, he was just too easy to get out of the way. So I don't know.
But I mean, if you're getting somebody out of the way that comes back, the only thing your opponent would have lost is possibly damage, and you've lost CP and cards. So unless you kill your opponent, every time you get rid of Emet-Selch for him to come back, you're losing hard out on that situation. And the comparable cards, of course, are Vanille from Opus 1, and then Mega Sisters both saw a lot of play because they would always come back to a certain amount of times, depending on the cards in your deck. And this one just comes back infinitely, which is really nice. Now those cards, they just had to go to the break zone to trigger their effect. This is a little less selective, so you have to, but it's still really good because it has that infinite part of it. And then 2 CP cards, I think you probably put Black Waltz, the new one from last set, or the Remnant. Is it Yazoo, the 2 CP one?
Yeah, Yazoo the 2 CP.
I think those would probably be your best bet, because then they give you like you said, like the other cards that deal damage, those don't get you any different value from breaking a doll forward. So unless damage is specific, something that you need. Yeah. All right. Next up is. Oh no, you're going next.
Yeah, a brand new summon for Ice. This summon was previously only in Earth. This is Carbuncle. If you play the games, you know Carbuncle specializes in Ruby Light, which casts Reflect on your whole party. So Carbuncle is a 2 CP summon. This is category 9 Carbuncle. You select one of the 3 following actions. If your opponent has 2 cards or less in their hand, select up to 2 of the 3 following actions. Instead, you can choose 1 forward and dull it. You can choose 1 ice forward. It gains 2,000 power until the end of the turn. Or you can choose up to 2 characters opponent controls, freeze them. So I think this card has a quote-unquote neutral effect, and that is the choose up to 2 characters opponent controls, freeze them. I don't think that's ever going to be bad. Because, again, if they have no forwards, you can just freeze 2 of their backups. That's really strong. And then it's kind of neat. It has the second effect, too, that, if their hand is really low, so you're playing a discard heavy ice deck, you're going to get one of those other effects, too. He's good. The only thing I could see him holding him back is that Ice just already has so many great summons in Glaciolabilus and Zalira, and I like some of the Shivas a lot, so I always find it hard to pick which ice summons I want, so it'll be hard to fit him in there, but I could really see a lot of value, and especially you draw him early, you can pitch a single card. Hey, those 2 backups you were planning to tap to keep curving out next turn, yeah, you're not using those. That could be really strong.
Yeah, I think Ice has a hard time picking summons too, because Ice often plays Flans and also the Skeletoad, so they lose some summon slots as well. So it's hard to play a lot of summons. My initial reaction to this guy was that he was bad, except for the 2 characters part is really cool. I like that a lot. And then now thinking about it, I like the ice forward boost of 2k, not because you plan on using it, because it's there, and Ice hasn't had that before. Like, it's new. Like, Ice hasn't had power boosting really from a summon. So it's kind of cool to have it. I think that could be useful. Something like Genesis coming across, and people are kind of they want to block it. They're incentivized to block it so they don't discard, and then now you have a way to pump them up if you need to. So I think that's kind of cool. But I don't know how I'm going to fit this in.
Yeah, I guess that's the part of when he came from Earth to Ice, he brought that power bump with him. He was like, all right, but I'm keeping this.
Yeah, exactly. That's an Earth effect. So
right?
What are you going to do? Okay, next up is Scholar. This is a 2 CP Ice backup standard unit, job 14. Dull, choose one forward until the end of the turn. It lose haste, strike, and brave, or first strike. This is cool. I like this a lot. This is... This would have been useful a few sets ago against WAF. Like, I think there people would in water would use Kukulane to blank haste off of Rain, or they'd blank Rain's abilities and stuff. So this is definitely useful. It's a 2 CP backup. I think depending on the meta, this will come in and out of decks. I think it's just good.
It's one of those that, like, if you know what you're fighting and you know they're having one of these effects, like, it would be fantastic. And if they don't, you have anything that has that, it's pointless. It just sits there. So
yeah, it's going to be a tech card for sure. And we actually had this card already. We had a 2 CP FFL backup, like Sophia or something, and you broke it. You broke it, and it did this effect to all your opponent's forwards, which is kind of like a fun counter to like a Lua turn or something. Not that they would do it because you have the card out on the field. So this is a way more manageable effect because you can do it over and over.
Yeah, and if anything, like you said, hey, just use it as an Alua ping. Let me break that shield up for you.
Exactly.
Or hey, here you go. Here's how you mess with Emet-Selch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a really cool way. Like, yeah, that's actually something that that we didn't talk about, is that if you do happen to have something really simple to ping Emet-Selch with, then it's kind of crappy. Or is it a Yume? Let's check real quick.
Emet-Selch is you have to. If he gets targeted, he's gotta be removed.
Yes, you're correct. Okay, let's move on.
All right. Next, we have, continuing with our Final Fantasy XIV jobs. That last one was with the Scholar. This one is the Gunbreaker. Gunbreaker is a 4 CP, 8,000 power forward, job standard unit, category 14, multi-playable unit. And Gunbreaker reads, when Gunbreaker forms a party and attacks, your opponent discards one card from their hand. Discarding on attack is an incredibly powerful effect. However, he has to party attack to do it, and Ice has to be one of the elements I've seen party attack the least out of so many of them. And out of all this new party support that this set got, I don't think there's anything that strictly buffs Ice. Maybe if you make a multi-element party deck with like Earth or Lightning or Water or something, and and you do that with Ice and you put this guy in here, the idea that they're discarding just by your attack, again, is really powerful. It's just hard to see him getting use because, again, Ice just rarely party attacks.
Yeah, it was fun in pre-release, but that's the end of our journey together, Gunbreaker. Okay. Next up is Bard, and this is a 3 CP backup standard unit, again 14. When your opponent discards a card from their hand due to your summons or abilities, you may put Bard into the break zone, and when you do so, draw 2 cards. This is interesting, but I just don't like the initial investment. I would not play this because you're losing that one card. It's actually secretly like a water card where it's like draw 2, discard 1, because the one that you discarded is the one that you use to play this. So I don't like it, but it is cool. Like, it's a cool effect, and could help you refill later on in the game. So if that's valuable, then maybe, but I don't like it that much.
Here's everything wrong with this card. The effect sucks. It is the character they chose for this is a race known as the Rogaden in Final Fantasy XIV. I've never seen a Rogaden play Bard in my life.
Oh, no,
so
yeah.
That's just weird. However, I will say Bard is my chosen DPS class in 14, so I kind of have a little affinity for that. No, the only thing I like about this is that you don't have to dull him to do it, so you can tap him for CP and just do that. But yeah, he costs 3 already, so it just feels like it doesn't even feel like you're getting it like a return on him. It feels like you're just breaking even. So you're just paying 3 CP for him to just sit there, waiting for you to do a discard effect. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't like him at all.
Okay, well, let's talk about a good card then.
As you wish. Ooh, interesting you said that, because I actually don't think this is a good card. So we're going to have a nice little fun
okay.
with this. So this is the Ice Legend for the set. This is the Emperor from Final Fantasy II, a 2-cost, 5,000 power forward, Job the Emperor. Beautiful amount of artwork. Just looks fantastic. So the Emperor reads, when the Emperor enters the field, if you have 2 or more card named the Emperor in your break zone, your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. Then, when the Emperor is put from the field into the break zone, you may search for 1 card named the Emperor and put it into the break zone. If you do, play the Emperor from your break zone onto the field dull at the end of the turn. So, I already said I don't like this card, and here's why. Cards like this, where you just got to have a ton of copies of the same card name, I just find to be weird, especially in a game where you can only play 1 version of them at a time. So if you draw all those other Emperor cards, you can't do anything with them except chuck them off to the break zone. You have to have 2 in the break zone already when he comes in, just to get his effect off. And then for his second effect, like, it's nice that he can kind of revive himself and come back. That part I do like. However, if you want his entry trigger, it's really easy to mess with that because he doesn't come back until the end of the turn. So they can, if they have anything that messes with your break zone, Mist Dragon, Kadaj, White Mage, whatever, then when he re-enters, you might not even get that trigger because they can totally screw with the break zone. Now, if you don't really care about the entry trigger, and you just want him for the idea that he's a sticky body that comes back, okay, then I could see liking him a bit more. But I guess for me, because he's such a weak body, I don't find that appealing at all. And it just feels like so much work for an entry effect that, oh, they discard a card. And I'm like, Ice has so many ways to make you discard a card. Like, I don't know. I'd be happy to be proved wrong about this card, but and when I read him, I just see so many ways to interrupt it, to mess with it, all this work for this really weak body. So, Alex, let me know what you think. I know you said you liked it.
Sticky forward, good. Discard, good. I love it. If someone's taken the time to like interrupt this guy's effect in your break zone, then you're probably doing pretty good in that game, because that's not something they should bother with. So I don't know. I like it. I like being able to keep a sticky forward out. I see it going into like an aggressive deck, and then as long as you can keep forwards on, then since you don't have haste in Ice, you need to have forwards out at the beginning of a turn so they can attack that turn, so that you can dull the things that are in the way of that card so they can swing through. So I think that it could help out in an aggressive deck. Now, I don't know if that's going to ultimately end up working, but as long as you can keep a forward out, the next turn, they could Fina wipe your board, and then you could play Eduardo, wait, is Eduardo's characters, right? Yeah. And then you could play Eduardo, and then, you're going in for another point of damage. So I'm optimistic about it. I do like the effect.
Since he's the legend, I hope he works out. I am not optimistic. I will say a point in his favor, though, too, is that he's not restricted to your turn. So, like, if you chump block with him, he'll still come back at the end of their turn, and then he's ready to do whatever on your turn. So that is nice.
And if he does come back a lot, and depending on how many discards he scores for you, man, that's awesome. And there are so many Emperors. There's 2 different choices in Ice, I think, at least. And then there's also another 2 choices in Dark. So you can definitely try out many different Emperors.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've got Shiva next, and I love the Explorer's art for the summons, and I hate it for their standard units. So the summon looks great. This is
great. I love she's blowing the dust out of her.
Oh, it's so classic. Yeah, it's amazing. 2 CP, Ice Summon, category Final Fantasy Explorers. Choose a doll forward, deal 10,000 damage minus 1,000 damage for each card in your opponent's hand. So very simple, very cheap, and I think that this is going to be right at home in a discard-based deck. But at the same time, we've had Shiva decks before that can deal this much damage to doll forwards, and dealing damage to doll forwards is just really tricky because they have to be dull. So it's not doing anything new. Like, I don't think this is that much this is easier than the 2 CP Shiva that counts your Shivas in your break zone. This is easier to get online, I think, but like not that much easier. So if that Shiva's not seeing a lot of play, then I don't see this Shiva seeing a lot of play.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that. That's a really good point. That one's still pretty cheap. Because to me, the real value of this is if you're hitting 10 or 9K. But to do that, they have to have either an empty hand or only one card in hand. If they have anything above that, it goes down. If they've got a full grip, you're doing 1,000 damage. So, yeah, like you said, that Shiva only has the caveat of it being a dull forward. This one, it's got to be dull. And it's entirely dependent on what kind of grip they have. So while she's cool, no pun intended, unfortunately I think she's got too much messing with her.
All right, another new backup.
This is Summoner, another Final Fantasy 14 job, category 14, 2 CP backup, standard unit, multi-playable. When you cast a summon, you may put Summoner into the break zone. When you do so, choose one forward, dull and freeze it. So to me, the only thing that keeps this being from just fodder is the fact that you don't have to dull this card to get its effect. Like the Bard, you can use it for CP, and then just even if it's dull, you just break it whenever you cast a summon and get a dull freeze on a forward. Because this one's only 2 CP, I like it a lot more than the Bard, because again, a 2 CP backup is always good. It's easy to play. They're nice to see early. And again, if you had to dull it, I wouldn't like this card at all, but just the fact that if it's already dull, you can go boop, and a second dull freeze, like that's a cool idea. You cast Glacial Lavalis off of this, and then hey, dull and freeze that card, and dull and freeze that card. That being said, Ice has really good 2 CP backup, so it's going to be hard to find space for this.
Yeah, I like it. I do. But then, yeah, I don't know how to fit it into a deck. And again, going back to what I said earlier, that you don't generally play that many summons in Ice anyway. You'd definitely be looking to play more, because Ice is more of an ETB deck and also some monsters and stuff too. So like a lot of Ice decks play like 3 summons, a couple Glacias and a Zelira. So it would definitely be a departure from what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
Next up, the Crystal Exarch, who is my second favorite character from Stormblood, Shadowbringers. Jesus. But his effect is super thematic to what he does in the game, which is bring the Warrior of Light to his world. And so he's a 4 CP, Ice Forward, 7k, job Overseer, which is kind of weird. I thought he just could have had job Crystal Exarch or something. But at the beginning of the main phase 2, during each of your turns, you can play a forward of cost equal or less to the number of Ice backups that you control from your hand onto the field. So if you have 5 backups out, you can play 5 costs or less every turn at the beginning of your main phase 2. So he has to survive combat. That means you can play him in main phase 1 and then pass through to your next turn, and he's going to summon somebody for you. This takes a lot of investment, as you have to have your backups up, and you also have to have the cards in your hand that you want to summon, and he's going to be a hot target for your opponent as well. So I think competitively he'll probably be too much work, but there's no way that I'm not trying this immediately and seeing what I can cook up.
100% agree, but I think this card is great. I thought the moment I read it, he sounded amazing. Unfortunately, you can't play him in main phase 2 and get his effect immediately, because Alex said, he does that at the beginning. But I like cards like this where he's not really a threat as an attacker, but your opponent still needs to invest to do something about him, or the value he's going to get you every turn is nuts. In mono Ice, again, you dropping a 5 CP forward for free at the start of your main phase 2, that's crazy. And what's interesting too is that even though he is tailored to the number of Ice backups you have, you can still play him in an Ice X deck, because the forward he puts out does not have to be an Ice forward. So if you're playing Fire Ice 6 and you've got 3 Ice backups out, you can put a lockdown for free. So I think he's going to be really fun to experiment with. And again, I like forwards like this. It's like, oh, he's no threat to attack on his own, but if your opponent doesn't do something about this, you're just getting cards for free every turn. Now, granted, they do have to come from hand. So again, if you have a low hand or you have bad draws, maybe you have nothing to put him out with. But man, I got to try him. He just sounds like he's going to be really fun.
I wouldn't play him in a multicolor deck. And the reason is, how many games, do you play with multicolor decks where you just don't see one of the colors? You know,
you're
like
right.
it's so much harder to guarantee that you get to that sweet spot of 3 of one color. Like if you can't guarantee that every single game, then he can't belong in that deck. So it would have to be like Ice Splash something, I think. But I think it's way more safe to just and then someone could do some backup removal shenanigans too to like really throw you off. So I think you want to have 5 ice backups and shoot for 4 costs or lower a lot of the time, unless backup destruction's not heavy in the meta. But yeah, I'd definitely be careful with that.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Oh boy. Anyone else see any weather changes in here? I feel like there's some snow coming. So this is Snow from Final Fantasy 13. He's also category Dissidia in this version. He is a 6-cost forward of 7,000 power, Jobless C. When Snow enters the field, you may search for 2 cards named Sarah, each with a different cost, and add them to your hand. Note that Snow cannot search for just 1 card. When Snow attacks, you may dull 1 active category 13 forward you control. When you do so, choose 1 forward, dull it, and freeze it. I hate this card. I think he sucks. This is one of those cards that, again, it just feels like they just went overboard with all these caveats. Like, so you have to search for 2 Sarah specifically, but they can't be the same cost. And then you can't even do it if there's only 1. So, like, let's say, it's getting close to the end of the game, you put them down, you go to search your deck, oh, there's only 1 Sarah left. You can't search at all. Like, I don't understand that. And then when you attack, you've got a dull and active 13 forward, so you can't I'll put a 13 monster out and do that, or and don't get me wrong, an on attack dull freeze is very strong, but he's only a 7k, I don't know, he's 7k body, a 6 cost, it's just, again, it's one of these cards, it has all these caveats, and I don't even think it's worth it for everything you do. And there's already other good Snow cards in the game, so I don't know, I don't like this guy at all.
I mean, if you're playing him, which you shouldn't, he's a 2 CP 7k, so he's above curve, right? Because you're not playing him if his conditions aren't live, so you're gonna net play him for 2 CP because you're getting 2 cards back in hand. But I don't even know if there's a Sarah with a special. So why do you need all these Sarahs? And when you dull one of your forwards to dull freeze something, it's yeah, sure, maybe a blocker's out of the way, but you're attacking 1 less time too. So
right.
It's I don't know. I don't like it very much.
Yeah, no, I don't either. He's so weird.
Speaking of weird, next up is Nooj with his weird bodysuit thing that he has, and he has a rifle, and there's so much. He's just such a typical really crazy design Japanese character that's way out there, that if someone not oriented with Final Fantasy or Japanese culture in general saw that, they'd be what is this creature? Right. Okay, so he's a 4 CP ice forward, 8k power, EX burst. When Nooj enters the field, choose 1 character your opponent controls. If your opponent has 2 or less cards in their hand, dull and freeze it. So in a discard heavy deck, it's an EX burst Genesis, but you're already going to be running Genesis, you're going to be running Squall, and maybe even that there's that 3 CP standard unit version of Genesis that can I don't think you'd probably run this at 4 CP in that deck. So yeah.
I was a little higher on him when I first saw him because he has an EX burst. I was like, well, EX burst is always relevant. But I tried that Opus 9 Sid Alstein backup, which has the same thing. If they have 2 cards or less in their hand, you dull freeze them. And, if they have no cards, you just break it. And he's on a burst. I've hit that thing in a burst 20 times. I've never gotten it to resolve because he just never hits at the right time. So, that's the thing. They have to have a low hand. So yeah, he could be good in limited or sealed or whatever. But no, I don't think you're going to use him constructed.
Yeah, no, I don't trust them on my team. What's next?
You know who you are going to use though? Little Beauty and the Beast reference here. Little town, it's a quiet village. Every day, like the one before. This is Belle. She's a 3-cost backup.
Wow.
Waking up to say, job informant, category, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Belle reads, when Belle enters the field, your opponent reveals their hand. Select one card of cost 4 or more in their hand. Your opponent discards this card. If anyone has played Zidane or Kate Sith, you know how strong it is to look at your opponent's hand and then get to discard something. Now, Belle is held back only by the fact that they gotta have a 4 cost or more in their hand. So there are going to be sometimes this whiffs, but people run a lot of high cost cards, especially 4 or more. So man, if you put this down and you could pluck Kadaj out of their hand, or you pluck out March, or maybe you see him search out the March with Mont Blanc, you're like, hey, that's nice. Let me put Belle down next turn. I'll just take that out of your hand and throw it in the garbage for you. That's so cool. She feels so good for a 3 CP. Like people are gonna at least use her, like at least as a one of, if nothing else. Again, and the nice thing is too that even if they don't have a cost 4, so even if you can't discard, you still get to see their hand. So at the bare minimum, you at least now know what's coming at you for the next few turns. She's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't rate the seeing the hand too highly with a whiff. It does suck. So it's going to be meta dependent if there's a sudden shift away from high cost cards, but there won't be, and there's tons of high cost cards in the meta. Like even back in the day, this would have been the dream to pick a Star Sybil out of someone's hand in the old Earthwind like Dadluma deck. So I like it.
Yeah, I just mentioned the forwards. Think of those backups. Star Sybil, Tyro is everywhere. Esha'ntarl, Alice. Like if I'm playing Scions and someone pulls Alice out of my hand, oh, I'm gonna be so mad. Like yeah, she's crazy good.
Okay, final card for today, and that is Mimic. Such a classic monster. Unfortunately, it's the new design type that they've gone with this set. So Mimic can become a forward with 7k power, or it can go into the break zone immediately, and if you do so, choose a forward and freeze it, and your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. That second ability is costed terribly at 3 CP. I don't like it at all. So they could have even made it like choose a character, and it would have been fair. So it's just they wanted to like have this theme of monsters come out, and like maybe you can use it in limited, but yeah, it's not a good card.
9? We've had 9 opuses now with monsters, and it took them this long to get a Mimic. That's kind of surprising. Yeah, if you ignore his forward effect, he's Glaciabolus. He's, hey, freeze a forward, make him discard. Glaciolabolus already does that. So I guess if like you really want a 4th copy of that card that you can only cast on your turn and not like here you go, this is the card for you. But yeah, sorry, Mimic.
Spoiler alert, you don't want a 4th copy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got Summon Recursion last set for Ice too. Yeah. So you definitely don't need this. Okay, that's the set for Ice, and what are we thinking? How do we like it?
I don't know. There's nothing that really jumps out at me. Like again, Belle is a great backup. Ulmia is kind of interesting. Okay, so I'll say this: there is a lot of stuff worth trying out in Ice. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that I find to be overwhelming. This is going to be incredible, except for maybe Emet-Selch. He does read really strong. There are definitely a lot of things worth trying. I don't know how strong it's going to be. Ice felt very weak last Opus meta, especially because of Broska's final Aeon. He really put a hamper on that element. But again, things like Necron, well, you don't have to attack. You can just sit there. Emet-Selch, he's going to survive Broska's. So maybe there's enough variety here and special things. And who knows, maybe that power bump that got introduced, maybe that'll be really relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course we haven't talked about the multi-element cards, so those could potentially give Ice a boost, and you'll just have to wait for that video to come out. Yeah, but looking at it at a glance, lots of cards I want to try. The only one that really stands out to me to bump the deck up a power level would be Emet-Selch, so definitely just like a passing grade for Ice this time around.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, well, that's it. We're going to take off, and you're going to watch this video, and we're going to go film the rest of the set reviews. So wish us luck, and we'll see you next time.
Stay frosty.